Next one is something called mix effects or Simpson's paradox. I think if mix effects it's not Boolean true and false. It's you can get they're gradual. They can happen a lot more or a lot less. Once you get to an extreme, I think it gets to be called the Simpson paradox. Here is, and this is real data. And by the way, if you're in politics, you would love this thing. So here is what you have. One party comes in and say employment rate has increased by 0.9% overall. And that's true in that particular data set. The other party comes in and says, hey, no, if you look across all segments of employment, the employment is down. You can see people with no degree. Actually, this is not employment, it's median wage. I think I messed up the slide. Here it should be just wage. So you can say salaries have increased for everyone, 0. Overall, they increased for everyone in the country by 0.9%. That's party A saying that. Then you get the next party, usually the one that's in power. You get the party that's not in power come in and say, if you look at each and every segment of society, their median wages have decreased. So for people with no degree, went down 7.9. For high school but no college, went up 4.7. For some college, it's 7.6, and for bachelor or more, went down 1.2%. How is that possible? Overall, it increased, but if you look at each and every segment, and again, it's kind of like the segmentation. It's a little bit like what happened with the Mosaic, but it's just one dimension that we're not talking about. That's just wage. That's all we're talking about. So how is that possible? I know it's late at night.
You have put some of the categories?
No, this is all. So that's, therefore, if you have to listen really careful to what they're saying. If you go to Fox News and they're telling you some statistics, they're probably right on the statistics, but listen to the keywords. Then you go on the next channel, which MSNBC would be the opposite of Fox. They may tell you the same statistics, listen to the keywords, and they're probably right too. Now, Simpson effects don't always happen, but it happened, and here is why. In a one word, people move from one category to the next. So let's say I had no degree. I was making $10,000 a year last year. But this year, or whatever, it's usually year to year or some period of time. There's a previous point in time and a current point, obviously, because it's a change. But let's say last year I was making $10,000, but now I got my high school degree, and I'm making $15,000 or $12,000. So I moved from the no degree category to the high school category. Now, because I'm a fresh high school graduate, I'm not making a lot of money. So that category, I'm actually pulling there. If you look at the average, I'm pulling them down a little bit because I came in with low salary. But I left the no degree category. And my salary is a little bit bigger. So overall, yes, everyone kind of got a little bit bigger. But there was probably lots of shifting between categories. You move from one category to the next. And no, fresh graduates usually don't get the same amount of money as somebody who's been there for a while. So if you have a lot of people moving from one category to the next, they weren't moving by saying they were in one category in the past. And currently they're in a different category. So their averages, if you look at the average for category, for that subpopulation, it went down because I probably brought it down a little bit. I'm not making a lot of money for that category. So that's basically the intuition. That's why it's happening. If your population stays exactly the same, nobody moves, then you don't really have a lot of effect. So you're not going to see something like that. But the fact is people move, or your data points move from one category. The population moves. Again, that's not the case for mosaic display because people's eye color usually doesn't change. You don't get from blue-eyed. It changes over time, actually, but it's not that bad. I don't know. So for the most part, you're staying there. And they came up with this thing called a comet chart. It looks like a comet. And here is what they have. Normally, the middle one, the middle comet, if you want, is the overall. Population size is represented on the y-axis. And whatever measure you are measuring, previous slide was about wage, but this can be size of labor for how many people work, unemployment rate, anything that you measure is going to be on the, no, I said it completely wrong. Flip everything I said. So the thing that you measure is on y-axis, just like pretty much everything that's dependent variable. You're measuring unemployment, so that's going to be on the y-axis. And then the size on the population, it's on the x-axis. So what you can see, for example, if you take this here, this is an ideal situation. The size of the population stays exactly the same. In this case, let me explain what a comet does. So the tail of the comet is previous year's data. So by the tail of the comet is right here. And the head of the comet is this year's data, or the current data. So time 1 and time 2, where time 2 is current and time 1 is past. As you can see here, the size has not changed over time. The unemployment rate changed, but the size of the overall population has not changed. It's going straight up. It's basically sitting on the same size on the X. Everything here is the same size. So this is an ideal situation where nothing changes. So this is the overall. This is the size of one type of population. You can label them, but these are different categories. So each comet shows a different category. High school, bachelor's degree, and so forth. They're not labeled in this picture, but they're kind of sitting like that. You run into this kind of paradox when you get, so the visualization on the right, the comet chart on the left is ideal. Population has not changed. The comet chart on the right is also kind of extraordinary in the sense that the population sizes kept changing while the employment rate did not change at all. You can see this subpopulation here, they changed, they increased from this many people to this many people. But their unemployment rate stayed the same. Same thing with this population. So you have some groups that increase and some groups that decrease in size. Otherwise, they stayed at exactly the same rate. Again, these are two idealized situations. So the one on the left, absolutely no effects, no Simpson, nothing. The one on the right, it's a complete Simpson thing because it just changes the population. People moved from one category to the other, and the categories did not change at all in terms of their overall averages. And you can see that the overall rate kind of goes one way or the other. That's something you can see. It goes completely outside of what the others are doing. So that's what to look. So what do you look for? How do you know you have these effects going on, that Simpson paradox? If you look at the comet chart and they're all kind of going in the same general direction, it really doesn't matter what the direction is. But as long as everything, including the overall, go in the same general direction, you have no mixed effects. No mixed effects. There's no mixing of the population. When you see them kind of going in completely separate directions, so here you have a few that go one way, a few that go the other, the overall goes in a completely different thing, you start to see mixed effects. So that's the comets chart attempt to do it. And by the way, the authors, I've seen the presentation, they kind of, later on, when we talk about tree maps, and I think we've seen an article presentation about it, tree maps, they started though, and they were notoriously bad at displaying data with mixed effects. they will give you the wrong idea of what's happening. So they also mentioned there are other classic visualization techniques that do not work with mix in the presence of a lot of mixing. When we have these effects where the population mixes, they just don't work. They give you they don't provide you the data, so they will mislead you with that. So they came up with this idea of comet charts, and that's what you're seeing here. I have a few more examples here. Now they've used labels, and again, unemployment rate. You can see that it's going down mostly, almost everywhere. There aren't that many. They kind of go in the same direction. So the aggregate kind of goes in the same direction. This is one example where they go all over. So some of them go this direction, others go the opposite direction. If you look at the aggregate, it's almost not changed. Although there've been, within each group, there's been big changes. And again, the reason is people move from one group to the other. So you have a lot of going to in different directions. Okay, so that's what you're seeing. It's really, it is technically about 2 dimensions, but it's really one data that you look at. The other one is the population size or different groups in the population. And you have an overall total average that you're considering. And then it's always going to be 2 points in time, whatever happens in the past or whatever it is right now. And you use those to create these comet charts. So there's some division, and then there's one data variable that you're interested in, like unemployment or salary growth